In the days when the judges ruled in Israel, a severe famine came upon the land. So a man from Bethlehem in Judah left his home and went to live in the country of Moab, taking his wife and 2 sons with him. The man's name was Elimelech, and his wife was Naomi. Their 2 sons were Mahlon and Chilion. They were Ephrathites from Bethlehem in the land of Judah. And when they reached Moab, they settled there. Then Elimelech died, and Naomi was left with her 2 sons. The 2 sons married Moabite women. One married a woman named Orpah, and the other a woman named Ruth. But about 10 years later, both Mahlon and Chilion died. This left Naomi alone, without her 2 sons or her husband. Then Naomi heard in Moab that the Lord had blessed his people in Judah by giving them good crops again. So Naomi and her daughters-in-law got ready to leave Moab to return to her homeland. With her 2 daughters-in-law, she set out from the place where she had been living, and they took the road that would lead them back to Judah. But on the way, Naomi said to her 2 daughters-in-law, "Go back to your mother's homes, and may the Lord reward you for your kindness to your husbands and to me. May the Lord bless you with the security of another marriage." Then she kissed them goodbye, and they all broke down and wept. "No," they said, "we want to go with you to your people." But Naomi replied, "Why should you go with me? Can I still give birth to other sons who could grow up to be your husbands? No, my daughters, return to your parents' homes, for I am too old to marry again. And even if it were possible, and I were to get married tonight and bear sons, then what? Would you wait for them to grow up and refuse to marry someone else? No, of course not, my daughters. Things are far more bitter for me than for you, because the Lord himself has raised his fist against me." And again they wept together, and Orpah kissed her mother-in-law goodbye. But Ruth clung tightly to Naomi. "Look," Naomi said to her, "your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and to her gods. You should do the same." But Ruth replied, "Don't ask me to leave you and turn back. Wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you live, I will live. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God."
Naomi and Ruth. Family brought them together when they married their sons, but God kept them together. Well, happy Mother's Day. Today we're continuing our series on God questions. We don't always buy that answer. We don't buy that answer. And because it's Mother's Day, we're looking at family. So all of you, I'm sure, if you're moms, you've got a year to look at the things that have happened in your family over the past year. Things that brought you joy, things that brought you pain. In my family, we got 2 grandsons in 4 days. And both of them were unexpected. So one by adoption and one a month early. So it was joy. And it is joy as I FaceTime with my daughter almost every day and discover the joys of first-time motherhood, being a mom. And because it's Mother's Day, we're going to look at this family, and today we're going to look at the kind of family that God brings together. Kind of like us, this eclectic group of misfit toys, all brought together. So we're working our way through the series. Like I said, I don't buy that answer. And we've been throwing out these tough questions and trying to find answers, trying to point you in the direction so that you can do your research, you can find some of the answers to the tough questions. And today, we're looking at family, that complicated dynamic. And in particular, we're looking at church family, the family that God knits together. And so our question today is, really, what is a church family? And do I really need a church family? And our key Bible passage for this entire series has been Matthew 7 through 14. Keep on asking and you will receive what you ask for. Keep on seeking and you will find. Keep on knocking and the door will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives, everyone who seeks finds, and everyone who knocks, the door will be open. So since it's Mother's Day, we're looking at a mom who lost everything. She lost every financial resource that she had. Because for a woman, your financial resources came from your family, came from your husband, came from your adult children. And yet, as we move through this passage today, we're going to see how God provides, how God provided and gave her family. So let's start out today with this crazy look at moms and some of the crazy things that moms say just to keep their family moving forward. So how about this one? I'm not going to make you raise your hand if you said these, but I will know by the smile on your face and the laughter. Don't make me turn this car around. See, obviously, there's no time to turn the car around. And if you did, who really loses? You, right? How about, don't do anything I wouldn't do, which leaves your kids wondering, what did my mother do as a teenager? It will cause nightmares forever. Or, shut the refrigerator door. Who do you think we are, the Rockefellers? Like your kids even know who the Rockefellers are. And did I just say, kids? Don't make me come in there. Have you ever said that? Don't make me come in there. This is a holdover from the Idle Threats 101 course that every parent in 1990 was required to take. What part of no don't you understand? Basically, you're asking your kid if they are dumber than a rock. Take it down a notch. What's a notch anyway? What you really want to say is, shut it off. Stop talking. Stop fighting. Stop whining. How about when I was your age, like before the internet was invented? This one, how many times do I have to tell you? So in our generation, that was a rhetorical question. We knew it didn't really mean anything. But in this age of everything being literal, you know what your kid is doing? They're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5. How about this one? I have had it up to here. So if you're a short parent like me, does that mean you have a short fuse? And if you're a tall parent, you have a longer fuse? And what is it anyway? How about this? Do you have ants in your pants or something? To this, your child will immediately begin a Google search on his phone where he will learn the horrible truths about what it's like to have ants in your pants. If your friends jump off a cliff, would you do it? Initiating an eye roll, right? Yeah, How about, because I said so? which is really stop asking me questions. This one makes a lot of sense. Go to bed. I'm tired. You don't need it, you want it. Yes, I am the official president of the official Killjoy Club. So welcome to family. Motherhood is tough as we work our way through it. And welcome to this family that you never thought you wanted. This family that God knew you needed. This church family. Today, for the rest of the service, I will be playing the role of mom in the church family. So everybody stick out your thumb, lick it, and wipe your face. Just kidding. Fred actually licked it. So Naomi, she's this good Jewish wife, and her husband, for the benefit of his family, decides they're going to move to Moab. There's nothing left for them in Jerusalem. He needs to provide for his family. So with no other family, no support system, just her husband and her 2 boys, they moved to a strange land. Like so many of us did when we moved to Phoenix. Didn't it just get stranger and stranger the further west you went, right? But Naomi moved to a country where Jewish people were oppressed. Jewish people were not the chosen people in Moab. There was this tension between Jews and Moabites. Even being a friend with a Moabite was discouraged. So can you imagine her growing up, her raising her family, how lonely she must have been without that support network, without those friends around her? And yet Naomi followed her husband. He was the provider. He was the head of the household. And then he goes and dies. See, nothing would have been worse than being a widow in the ancient world. Without your husband, you would not be able to survive on your own. But Naomi, she had 2 sons. 2 sons that she could be dependent upon. They were her survival now. And so they grow, and they marry women who are from the culture that they live in, Moabite women. See, and even though this is unacceptable in the Jewish culture, that's where they lived. Who else were they going to marry? So now Naomi's safe. She's got 2 grown sons. They're going to take care of her. And she's got daughter-in-laws to build a new family on. And then her sons go and die. See, and this whole idea of what family looks like, I'm sure for Naomi was getting really skewed. Naomi and her daughters-in-law must face life in a male-dominated world with no male family members to provide for them. There's little hope until Naomi hears that the famine is over and they can return to Judea. See, Naomi, she knows she's not going to get married again. And so as she's preparing to return, she's got Ruth and Orpah. What is she going to do with them? Culturally, both of these young women are young. They were childless when they lost their husbands. So they can return home and hopefully their own families can just marry them off again. So Naomi, she's got no choice. She's going to return to her homeland. And both of her daughter-in-laws set out with her. Now, isn't that interesting to note? First off, they knew they could go back to their own families, where their moms and their dads would provide for them, would find them new husbands, and yet they chose to go with Naomi. It says a lot about Naomi's character, about who she was as a woman, who she was as a mother-in-law. She must have been amazing. And so they're going along this journey, and Naomi, she just knows this is not the right thing to do for these young women. There's more for them out there. And so she encourages them to return home to their families. In Orpah, she agrees to return home, but Ruth chooses to stay with Naomi, chooses to follow Naomi wherever she goes, to live wherever Naomi lives, to worship whomever Naomi worships, to become family with Naomi's family, and to die in the land where Naomi dies. What an amazing picture of family. What an amazing picture of how God brings people together in family. Because she had no hope. Naomi had no hope. And here was Ruth. See, perhaps you, many of us, have experienced situations where we have felt we have no hope. We may have lost a job, and suddenly we're not able to provide for our families, or the doctor may have given us a diagnosis that's scary. We don't know what the next step will be. Or a life-altering accident happens to one of your kids, your spouse. And we're faced with the question, how do I cope? How do I survive? Who do I blame? At one point, Naomi blames God. In verse 20, she says, "No longer call me Naomi, but call me Mara, for the mighty one has dealt bitterly with me." See, the truth is God did not punish Naomi. God did not make life hard for Naomi, but God took what was happening in Naomi's life and he used it. See, it's important for us to get past this idea that when something bad happens, God is punishing us. And when something good happens, then God's pleased with us. The world and God simply do not act like that. So as we go along, God is providing for Naomi. See, in the middle of this great need, and as the story goes on, God provides miracle after miracle after miracle of love, protection, provision, all over Naomi. And hold on, because you will discover at the end of this message how God provided family for you, through Naomi's daughter-in-law, Ruth. But for right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to challenge you to put aside all of the negative thoughts, all of the negative feelings that can come up when we talk about family. And what family can mean, what our families mean, and even sometimes what God's family means. In a perfect world, God's family is the place where you can find acceptance, where you can find love, support, joy, in a perfect world. That's the way the church family should be. But let's focus on family. Naomi and Ruth are this great example of family being brought together. The book of Ruth is a short read in the Old Testament. It's only 4 chapters. And to get an understanding of how God brings family together, I really encourage you to read the book of Ruth. Now, just a disclaimer, especially for those of us in the modern world, I need you to read the book of Ruth from the perspective of family. See, there's things in the book of Ruth about the culture of the time, about this male-driven society. It just happens to be a fact of society at that time. So don't look at it as, well, this is all messed up because men ruled this and men ruled that and all of this. Look at family. Don't look at it through the eyes of 2023. But look at it of this beautiful story of family, woven together in a culture that ended up being a blessing to a woman named Naomi. So back to our question. Do you really need a church family? Pastor Fred, he didn't do it this morning. I was hoping he would because I have it in my notes. But usually he stands up here and he says, welcome to our living room. Welcome to our home. Welcome to the place where you can hang out and be family. And for some, that feels really good. You just want to settle in your chair and be... And for some of you, it feels really dysfunctional, right? Perhaps you come from dysfunctional, messy families where you're put down, where you're not accepted. So I'm going to ask those of you just to take a step back, to not put a label on family, but to listen to how God calls family and how God creates family. See, Jesus, he set his church to be united as one. People that come together from all different walks of life. Ephesians 2:19 through 21 is a letter written to the church in Ephesus by the Apostle Paul. And this is a beautiful way of how Paul describes a church family. So now you Gentiles are no longer strangers and foreigners. You are citizens along with all of God's holy people. You are members of God's family. Together we are his house, built on the foundations of the apostles and the prophets. The cornerstone is Jesus Christ himself. We are carefully joined together in him, becoming a holy temple of God. And then the first church, after Jesus had ascended into heaven, he told his disciples, hang around, stay in Jerusalem, wait, because I am sending someone who is going to bind you all together, who's going to give you power and give you strength. And the Holy Spirit came, and the church was born. Acts 2:42 through 44, and all the believers devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship and to the sharing in meals, including the Lord's Supper, and to prayer. A deep sense of awe came over all of them, and the apostles performed many miraculous signs and wonders, and all the believers met together in one place and shared everything they had. The ideal picture of a church family. All the believers met together and shared everything they had. See, we're called to be here. We're called to be here through the ups and the downs, to celebrate together when great things happen, and to mourn together, to walk alongside each other. Romans 12:15-16. Be happy with those who are happy, and weep with those who weep. Live in harmony with each other. Do not be too proud to enjoy the company of ordinary people like me. And don't think you know it all. Map. There's your road map. Right there. This is what it's like to be a church family. See, so often when tough situations happen, when crises happen, our natural tendency is to back up, retreat into our homes, close the curtains, lock the doors. You don't know how many times I have heard through the years, "I'm sorry, I wasn't in church. I had stuff going on in my life and I didn't think I should be here. I didn't want to be a burden to anyone. I didn't want anyone to know." People, that just breaks my heart. The original intention of the church was to be there for each other, not for people to sit alone on the outside, broken, hurting. You don't need to go through this life alone. Rejoice with people who are rejoicing and mourn with people who are mourning. So my story I want to share this morning could be so many of you, your story of loss. So we have this wonderful person in our church who recently experienced a tragic loss. Paula Perschkel. In just 3 weeks, she fell and broke her arm, and she lost her son to suicide. When she broke her arm, she was on her way to church. And the only way anyone knew what was going on, because Ralph Rivas, who's a little on the sarcastic side, he's not here today, so I can say that about him, he sent her a text, "Why aren't you in church?" To which she replied, "I'm in the hospital, I broke my arm." And then about a week later, her son, that she hadn't seen in a couple of years, committed suicide. Now, I'm not calling her out because I called her, I asked her permission, I even said, "I'll leave your name out of it." But she gave me permission to share. And we only found out about the loss of her son because she posted it on Facebook. And then Ralph called her. And then Ralph called me. And when I reached out to her, she needed love and comfort, but she did not realize that her church family was the place she would find it. We met. I loved on her. I explained to her what family really was. Shelley brought her a meal. Other people started stopping by her house. And then last Saturday, she came to the women's one day. And I sat with her and I watched as woman after woman came up to her, hugged her, loved on her. And then on Sunday, more and more people just loving her, letting her know that they were family. And when I called her on Thursday to ask her if I could share her story, she said, "Please do. I want everyone to know how grateful I am, how loved I am." That's a church family. We love. We rejoice with those who are rejoicing, and we mourn with those who are mourning. That's what it's like to be a church family. In the local church, in our church, it is our hope, it is our mission, it is our vision, it's our desire that this would be happening around here every time someone is celebrating. Happy with those who are happy. And when someone is hurting and broken, it is our desire from the bottom of our hearts that they would feel loved, that they would feel held on to, that there would be someone sharing their pain. And we have this huge extended family. God gave us the local church, the front line of love and care. But when the church is done right, every other Christian around the world is your extended family. See, we might not always think the same. We might not always believe the same. But if Jesus is truly the leader of our lives, if he's who we're looking to for our guidance, we'll strive to love like Jesus. Do we always get it right? No. We are flawed and broken human beings, just like you. We say some dumb things. Have you ever done that? Said something dumb to someone who's hurting and went, oh my goodness, what did I just do? We say some dumb things in the name of trying to be like Jesus. So if you've been hurt by the church, I'm sorry. Don't look at the people inside of the church as an excuse for your pain. Look to Jesus as a reason for your hope. And know that we're just trying. We're all trying our best. Because when we do that, we do what we are created for. Excuse me. We are created to be connected to other people. We are not created to go through this life alone. We are not created to be standing on the outside, hurting and broken. So the question, do you need a church family? For me, I wouldn't do life any other way. I would not do life without people who love me and support me and carry me and continually point me to Jesus. I wouldn't want to do it. So back to Ruth and Naomi and how they tie into the church family today. So Ruth, she travels back to Bethlehem with Naomi, and she eventually marries a relative of Naomi's. Ruth had a role in creating the family of God. You see, Ruth is mentioned 2 times in the Bible, during the book of Ruth and in the Gospel of Matthew. Matthew 1 follows the lineage of Jesus. Verse 5, Boaz was the father of Obed, whose mother was Ruth. Boaz's mother was Ruth. Obed was the father of Jesse. Jesse was the father of King David. King David's great-grandma was Ruth. Just let that sink in. If you grew up in church in any way, sort of form, you've heard about David. David shoots Goliath, whips the stones, kills Goliath, becomes king eventually. David, a man after God's own heart, his great-grandma was Ruth, Naomi's daughter-in-law. And then skipping ahead, because you got to go through this whole lineage, and so begat so-and-so if you're looking at like the King James Version. And we get to verse 16. Jacob was the father of Joseph and the husband of Mary. Mary gave birth to Jesus, who is called the Messiah. God uses our hurt, our brokenness, our pain. We might not see it today, but Naomi got to be a grandma. Naomi got to be a great-grandma. Naomi is in the lineage of Jesus because of her daughter-in-law, Ruth. God weaves family together. He brings together the broken, the lonely, the healed, the whole, those who are in want, and those who have so much to give. He creates family. Let's pray. Holy God, I thank you for your role in our lives, your role in bringing this family together. The way you weaved family through so much pain into a group of people who look towards you as they love and care for each other. So God, I pray for this family today. God, I pray that for each and every person here who is hurting and broken, I pray that you will whisper in someone else's ear. For every person who is celebrating today and not sharing, I pray that you will whisper in somebody else's ear. God, thank you so much for bringing family together. In Jesus' name, amen.